Are you the parent or caregiver of a child who's around 5 or 5.5 years old? Maybe they're in kindergarten or they've been in kindergarten for a few months, and you're wondering what sounds they should have and how you can help them sound clearer. Well, you've come to the right place. This is the second in a series of videos on how to help your 5-year-old sound clearer. But first, let me introduce myself. Hi, I'm Amini. I'm a speech and language pathologist with several years of experience working with children and their families to maximize speech and language development. I also have a practice, Smarter Speech, in the Bay Area where I do the same. And my mission with this channel is to help parents and caregivers, especially those with children around the age of 5 or younger, because this is when a child's speech and language are developing so rapidly, and little changes that you make in the way you talk and play with your child have huge implications for the way not just speech and language develop in the future, but also for how learning develops in the future. So going back to our question, in this second in a series of tips for speech clarity in 5-year-olds, how can you help your child sound clearer? Well, one of the things that I look for in the 5-year-olds that I'm working with is the emergence of blends. So a child doesn't have to have all their blends correct at this point, but they should start to say at least a few of them correctly. And you can help them along this process because when blends are not correct, it can make a child more difficult to understand. So I'm going to be talking about 3 kinds of blends here. I'm going to be talking about S blends, L blends, and past tense ED, which can sometimes become a blend. So let's go through them one at a time. First one, L blends. So an L blend is normally when an L is mixed with another consonant, and they often happen in the beginning of a word. So a toy that or a game that I like to emphasize for L blends, is the SNAILS PACE RACE. I can focus the camera a little bit. There we go. The SNAILS PACE RACE. So the reason why I like this game so much is because you can talk about words like slow. The snails are slow. You can also talk about playing the game together. So those are really good ones. And then you can also talk about L blends in play with Play-Doh. So in the case of Play-Doh, you've got words like play, you've got words like glue or clay, or maybe you're going to make some flower molds, a bunch of molds here that are actually flowers. So you can get started with those. You can get started with words like slow. Maybe you're making things slowly. Maybe you're gluing. So those are some great words already. Slow, glue, play, clay, flower. So all you have to do is you have to emphasize these words in your daily routines, and you want to just spend a little extra time on how you're saying the consonants. So notice how I said slow or glue. I'm exaggerating the way that L is there so that it's not dropped, because oftentimes you'll hear things like goo or loo instead of glue. So you want to show both those consonants when you're saying them. You can write these words down on a Post-it, have them with you while you're doing arts and crafts, while you're playing a board game, whatever it is, and then you can just say them over and over again. You might be wondering, what's the benefit of just saying them? Your child will notice the way that you're saying them. They will pick up, and subconsciously, especially if there's not much pressure, they might also start emphasizing those blends, or at least noticing the blends when they happen in conversation, which helps them along to acquiring those blends themselves. Another sound that I look for blends is the S blend. And so I can demonstrate this with a few board games. Again, same principle here. You want to be holding out the S blend, emphasizing both the consonants that go into the S blend, and just saying them over and over again. So in this particular case, SMELLY is a great S blend. S and M are mixed together. So there's SMELLY, socks. There's all sorts of socks in this game. So there's stripe. So notice the way I said stripe. Stripe socks. There's strawberry socks. There's spotted socks. And all sorts of socks, really. Striped, spotted, sloppy socks. You can think of these sorts of words. Again, you can write them down on a Post-it. Going back to our snail's pace race game, there's some S blends that you can talk about here too. So you can talk about starting the race. You can talk about stopping the race. You can talk about snails. You can talk about how they're slow. Again, if you're looking for some S blends at the end of the word, you can talk about who's last, who's first, who's next. Those are great ones too. So any sort of a race game, you can write those words down and emphasize them over and over again. So that's another way to emphasize S blends. The last kind of blend that I emphasize for 5-year-olds whenever I play with them or work with them is the past tense ED. So I tend to look for verbs that end in a consonant because they make this blend at the end. So for example, maybe this bus driver climbed inside, climbed. There's a blend there of kind of the M and the B and the D together, climbed. So you don't want climb or Clyde, you want climbed inside. Whenever I'm talking about opening the door, for example, opened, N and D are blended, the door, closed the door. So maybe drove fast, all that is fine. You can talk about fast. Again, opened the door, the boy walked down or climbed down or followed. For each of these, you want that D to be nice and clear. You also want the consonant that was before it to be clear as well. So that's how you would emphasize past tense ED. Again, I would suggest just writing a few of these down, and you can alternate which days you work on them. So maybe Mondays you work on L blends, Tuesdays you work on S blends, and Wednesdays you work on past tense ED, and you cycle through. And then if you do this consistently, you really are helping your child along with noticing when blends happen, noticing they have 2 sounds in them, both of which have to be emphasized. And then when the time is right, your child will also pick up. But if you continue to be concerned about speech clarity, these are just basic tips that parents can use. It's really important to reach out to a speech therapist near you, talk to the child's teacher or pediatrician to get more support if that's what you think your child needs. Earlier is always better when you're trying to get some help and support. So I would encourage you to make that call. If you're looking for more resources on speech sound development, check out some of the links in the description box below. So we've got a link to our mailing list with a monthly speech and language tip. There's also a link to our ebooks, our parent education courses, and of course, I've linked some of the materials that I used in this video. So I hope that you enjoyed this tip. I hope you have some time, just 10 to 15 minutes a day, to emphasize S blends, L blends, and past tense ED when you're talking and playing with your child. And I hope this video helped you. If it did, please subscribe. Happy talking.